Going to finish talking about Metroid today. Here we go. Immediately starting. One thing I really like about Metroid Prime Hunters, to finish off that game, is I really like the designs of the other hunters. I think they're all really good and really cool. I can't even really pick a favorite among them. I just think they all look really cool. They're all very... They fit very well within the world of Metroid. They all have these unique alien designs. They all have... I think I read somewhere that Nintendo of Japan picked out the colors and the silhouettes as well for each hunter as they were going through the process. And I just think they all look really good. I would really want to see a remake of Metroid Prime Hunters. Like a real proper remake of Hunters. Remade all the way up. New music, new visuals, new graphics. Same story. Just completely redone from the ground up. But yeah, add in more enemies. Flesh it out beyond just the DS game that it was. Into something more full and proper. Fix Silux. Fix him. That would be fantastic. That's all I gotta say about that. Well, okay, I'm pulling up my sticky note. Once again, I didn't pull up the sticky note ahead of time, but at least I'm on it. Okay. Here we go. Let's see. Okay, sticky notes. Metroid music. I talked about... Okay, still gonna talk about it. Suits. That'll be at the end as well. Alright, hold on. Pulling up that thing I was looking for. Okay, gonna talk about Metroid Dread. I'll talk about Metroid Dread. One thing I really like about Metroid Dread, really like, is how it characterizes Samus. When Dread starts, Samus has been on a streak for multiple weeks, months. There's no exact definitive time frame from between Metroid 2, 3, 4, and 5, which is 5 is Dread. There's no definitive time given between each one, but you got to think about what Samus has been through. You have Metroid 1, and then you have the whole Prime series in between that. Except for maybe 4? Which might... I'm not sure what's going on with 4, with its whole date thing. It's slightly before Super Metroid, but after Metroid 2. I'll have to check that again. Or was it after Super Metroid? 4 has something going on with its date, but I won't get into that right now. I probably won't get into it, but whatever that is, that's what that is. But the start of Dread is after a multi-mission streak that Samus has been going on. So it starts at It starts at Metroid 2. She eradicates all the Metroids except for one, takes it to the station, immediately gets pulled into the mission against the space pirates on Zebes, and then after that goes through Other M, and then after that goes through Fusion, and then after the nightmare that Fusion is story-wise with the X-Parasites, immediately jumps into the beginning of Metroid Dread, and you can see how how impatient she's just moving all over her ship's console. Something that makes me sad though is you don't get to see the Edakuns and the Decoras inside of her ship at all. Is that really what they're called? Edakuns and Decoras. Edakuns and Decoras. What's their actual name? I may have just been saying it completely wrong. Metroid. Are they called Edakun? They are called Edakun. Okay, good. Edakuns. And... what about the Decor? Oh yeah, I got it right. Okay. It does make me sad you don't get to see the Edakuns and the Decoras in Metroid and Metroid Dread. But if anything to go by from Metroid Fusion, the X parasites ignore them for some reason. I think it said because they might be like just kind of unuseful to the. They're like the one species that X parasites deem as just being kind of pointless. They don't even like see them on whatever way that they see or sense things. But you get to the start of Metroid Dread, and also after years of Nintendo misusing the word bounty hunter to describe Samus and them not really understanding what a bounty hunter is, Metroid Dread is the first official mainline Metroid game to officially have Samus bounty, going after a bounty. And the opening, Adam says like, the bounty is not high enough for the danger, or something like that. Hello. Let me see if I can get that voice. The bounty is not high enough for the risk. The bounty is not high enough for the risk. Hello, hi you. The bounty is not high enough for the risk. I can't do it right now. I'm too excited. But it's the first time. It looks like finally they're going with her. They're really going with her being a bounty hunter, and it sheds some insight that she does the bounty hunting to sort of keep tabs on the galaxy and sort of keep it safe. You know, the bounty hunter with the heart of gold that they were thinking at Retro Studios until they found out that they didn't actually know what a bounty hunter is. And it looks like the what's his name? Metroid series producer. What's his name? Not Kensuke Tanabe. He only does Metroid Prime. 2D Metroid series producer. It's not Kensuke Tanabe. Let's see. Oh yeah, those interviews that came out today. Unsure if there will be another game. That's not Retro Studios' fault. You guys really flubbed that. I'm a little glad that Kensuke Tanabe I don't trust Kensuke Tanabe's instincts a lot of the time. I don't know everything he has a hand in or everything he does. But I've never really trusted Kensuke Tanabe's instincts with things that he's worked on. So I am a little relieved that he's moving on from doing Metroid Prime. Is it Don Sakamoto? No, it is not. I don't even know where I came up with that. I think it was from the Nintendo Treehouse where there was a guy named Dan that he talked to. Who is the producer of 2D Metroid? Yoshio Sakamoto. So I mixed up when he said Don, yeah, and then he told him good luck, and then I mixed up his last name. That's funny, but it looks like he finally did it. He decided to finally put it in that Samus truly is a bounty hunter who goes after bounties. So that's nice to see. Also, I really like Adam's voice. It is funny to me that a lot of the voices in Metroid Dread are text-to-speech voices. But of all of them, Adam's voice really does it for me in terms of that. But anyway, at the start of Metroid Dread, seeing Samus just in a hurry, the entire game of Metroid Dread, you can just feel all the fatigue and the frustration of everything Samus has had to go through, starting with Metroid 2, just finally getting to her, and I don't even just think it's the Metroid DNA reacting to Ravenbeak. I think it's just genuine frustration at everything that she has been through and how things just won't stop. Like, you think about it, there is this slow building anger in Samus throughout the entirety of Metroid Dread that finally just gets released right at the ending. And it starts with her body language in that ship. And the way she's just rushing. She just went through the whole X-Parasite thing. And now you're telling her there's more X-Parasites, and she's just gunning it. Just flying that ship as fast as she possibly can. And this contrasts later, I think, with a scene that is... I think the contrast later with a specific scene is really interesting. Let me see if I wrote it down, actually. Yeah. There... hold on, there's a couple things I want to write down in my notes. Backgrounds, gimmick, EMMI. Let's see, what else? Backgrounds, gimmick, EMMI. I'm gonna talk about the music. Let's see, backgrounds, gimmick, EMMI. Parrying. I'll discuss that. Okay, so I wrote that down. But, another thing that I absolutely love about Metroid Dread is getting to see the sheer amount of experience that Samus has built up over the course of just so many missions that she has been on. This is her at her most, like, refined. All of her instincts just... she has become a hunter. Like, and more than just being called the hunter, you know, the space hunter, Samus Aran. She has genuinely become, like, a predator, hunting people down. And even then, it doesn't guarantee her victory. She still has to struggle. She still has to triumph. She still has to run for her life from the EMMI. I remember when the first trailer for Metroid Dread came out, I thought the EMMI, because they cut as soon as the red light shines, I thought the EMMI was, like, shooting some kind of percussive blast that was, like, blowing her helmet off. I know they would never get that graphic, but that's what it looked like at first. The way her head, like, of course in the game, her head flinching is just from the needle going into her neck if you fail the event with the EMMI, but at first I thought her head was, like, getting blasted backwards from something the EMMI was doing. But, just getting to see Samus at her most experienced, like, there's a big contrast, even with Prime 4, which I wish Prime 4 had adjusted her body language a little more, but watching her in the cutscenes in Prime, she doesn't look too professional, if that makes sense. Her body language is constantly open, and she's kind of like doing these cartoony, like, what? What's this? What's going on? And then she sort of, like, gets into... It's better in Prime 4 than it is in Prime 1 and 2. In Prime 2, she kind of enters a room and does these really exaggerated, like, I'm looking around. Whoa, what's going on here? You know, that kind of thing. I do remember in the Fury Green cutscene before you meet Miles McKenzie, she is holding her arm cannon as she enters the room. So that is, like, a nice bit of growth. But in Prime 1, she's, like, kind of wary all the time and looking around, just like, and then she'll kind of, like, aim her arm cannon, you know, a bit. But when you get to Dread, she enters every room with her arm cannon first. She immediately enters every room, already holding her arm cannon, facing it outwards, just ready to shoot anything. She... I'm glad she has trigger discipline, because the moment she hears Quiet Robe, it's gun first. And then she sees him, and then, So she's not like trigger happy. She still has the mental clarity and ability to like analyze the threat for a quick second before pulling the trigger. But yeah, in Dread, Samus enters every single room, arm cannon first, ready to shoot something, constantly looking around every corner. There's not a single instance in Dread where Samus isn't prepared to just shoot something. She's super agitated. You could just feel how, just from the opening cutscene and going through, how she's just holding in this agitation the entire time that she's going through. And she's going hand to hand in Dread with aliens taking body blows from guys like Corpius and just unloading missiles into faces. And the thing is that she's earned it. It really the thing about Dread is it doesn't feel like... It's because we have so much history with Samus, and we've seen her be cautious and methodical. And she's still methodical, but she's also a lot more confrontational now. And it's not just like, oh, they made her some kind of boss, some kind of like, look how cool Samus is and overpowered she is, and look at her do these cool things. It's like, no. You have sat through many missions with Samus. You've seen her be methodical. You've seen her be cold. You've seen her be calculating. And she still is. But she has earned... I think she has earned the right through and through to just get hands-on with these creatures and the frustration that she's feeling. And she has earned this skill after mission after mission after mission, after running away from enemies, after fighting enemies, after being on death's door multiple times, going through it just endlessly. She has, with Dread, she really has earned the right to just pin enemies to the ground with aggression and just siphon the life force out of them with her new Metroid power. That is one of my favorite. I'll talk about the X-Parasites in a second, but those cutscenes when Samus defeats a Chozo, an ex-Chozo soldier, and she just takes it and smashes it into the ground and just holds it there, and you see the Chozo soldier flailing on the ground. It's like mutated mass. Ugh, I'll talk about it in a second, but Samus has more than earned, I think, by the time of Dread, just the sheer amount of anger and frustration that you can see in her, and just caution, and some, I wouldn't even call it paranoia, but just overwhelming caution. Everywhere she goes, she is a super duper professional by the time of Dread. And that cutscene where she walks in on Kraid's room, she walks in that room where Kraid is, and it's funny. She still walks in gun first, but it's the contrast though. It's her body language and the contrast of her walking in gun first. In every other cutscene, every other alien, every other creature, she walks in gun first, keeps gun first, and just, fires and does her thing. But when she sees Kraid, she walks into the room gun first, the usual thing she's been doing, and the moment she recognizes who it is, she completely relaxes her body language and just lowers her arm cannon and just looks at Kraid. This is a very different Samus from the Samus in like Prime, who was a little wary and like a little, ooh, what's going on in here, and like, oh, an enemy, I gotta, whoa, get into position. Her body language is more wobbly. Whereas in Metroid Dread, she doesn't waste a single movement. Everything she does in Dread is precise, cold, calculated, made to be as effective and damaging as possible. And after all of those scenes of really hammering home of just how aggressive and efficient Samus has become, her lowering her arm cannon just to stare at Kraid, just like, oh, it's you. And somehow she judged the distance of how far Kraid's chains can go. Because he lunges forward, and she doesn't even flinch, and she just stares at him, charges her beam. Her arm cannon is down, just by her side. She's just standing there. Her body language completely relaxes the moment she realizes it's Kraid. She starts charging her beam, and then just casually lifts up her arm cannon to Kraid's old weak spot and just shoots into it, and that's it. It's so perfect. The way she just lowers her guard, stares at him, charges the beam cannon as he's roaring in her face. Keep in mind, from her point of view, all she sees is his mouth. It's like 2-3 times bigger than she is, and she's just staring at him, screaming at her, and all she sees is a weak point. She just raises her arm cannon casually, shoots into his mouth, and then gets into position to fight. And then her at the end, she dodges his stomach spike. It's so perfect. The way Samus has grown just as a combatant, the way she's become so yeah. The way she's just become so much more efficient and cold when it comes to just dealing with enemies. There is something I want to talk about, though, which is that I'm going to skip over Samus Returns. I like the artwork. Here's what I'll say about Samus Returns. I like a lot of the ideas that Samus Returns introduced, but Samus Returns is a little too gimmicky for my taste in terms as a game. Not even the structure of the, the acid lower. Again, you look at like another Metroid 2 remake, that really is, for me, the best way to do Metroid 2. Even its redesigns of the Metroid evolutions. When it comes to Samus Returns, I really like the redesigns of the Metroid evolutions, but only in the artwork form. Like, I really like how they redesigned the Omega Metroid in the official artwork. But in terms of how it looks in the game, Samus... let me look at it again. Omega Metroid. I like the artwork of the Omega Metroid a lot, but in terms of how it actually looks in the game, I'm not the biggest fan. I think the artwork that they did for the Omega Metroid looks a lot better than how the Omega Metroid actually looks in Samus Returns. But another thing I'll say is I'm not really a fan of the Chozo memories. It kind of feels like it replaces the environmental storytelling and the smaller moments they would put in the actual games. And Samus Metroid Dread does it a bit better, I think. But I'm not really a fan of narrative being delivered through the Chozo memories, particularly. It's not that You see, just as a matter of preference and taste, I would rather the Chozo memories aren't there. But mainly beyond that, it's because of what the Chozo memories end up influencing them to do with the game design itself. It feels like it strips away their incentive. You know, if they could do both, have the Chozo memories and have those more characterful moments during gameplay, you know, I would like both of those things. I think that would be really cool. And I think Metroid Dread balances it a bit better. Especially because, like, Dread's Chozo memories are more backstory type things rather than. Whereas Samus Returns, that's setup for the next game. But, I'm iffy about the memory thing. Just as a matter of taste, I'd rather it's not there. But if it's gonna be there, you know, don't let it influence how, you know, previous games would tell more environmental stories and have more characterful moments during gameplay and more just like that's something that was really interesting about Super Metroid is how many just characterful moments, you know, Crocomire. There's nothing like Crocomire in like Metroid Dread or even Fusion. Just that weird random encountering this thing. Even like the goofy robots in the crashed ship, the like cylinder robots with the little like tube legs. There's nothing like really like that in other Metroid games, except for maybe like Metroid Prime, but even then, not to the same extent as like Super Metroid did it. These smaller characterful that feels like something that's been lost later on. But enough about like Chozo memories. Another thing I want to talk about I was talking about Kraid. Like, I just really like how you get to see the sheer amount of experience that Samus has had. And even the fact that she's able to hold her own against Ravenbeak long enough before she's defeated. And she's actually doing what you have to do during the Ravenbeak boss fight. She actually does the movements that you have to do for that, which I think is really cool. Oh, should I talk about Zero Mission? I think I just spoke about it a little bit. Zero Mission, really good remake. Excellent remake. It's like the best explorative elements of Super Metroid condensed with like the best. It's like the perfect balance of a lot of subtle guidance and but open exploration, and the amount of like added stuff they do, like that insect creature, the centipede, that like caterpillar thing that flies around, the improved level design, the epilogue with, I think that robot Ridley is really goofy. Could have done without that, but but I don't want this to be too long. Zero Mission, it's really good. I like what it did for the original Metroid. Super duper quality. Even ties in a bit with the manga and Samus's backstory. It very good, very excellent. Anyway, Metroid Dread, though, getting back to that, I really like Metroid Dread's parry system, and the thing is that Metroid Dread never actually requires you to do, except for, I don't even know if you need to, I guess you need to do it during Ravenbeak's, but they're very generous with that timing. There's those cutscenes in Ravenbeak's thing. Do you need to do those to beat him, or when you just drop him below a certain health, those are just like extra damage, but you don't need to do them? I don't think you need to. There's never really a point in Metroid Dread where you need to parry. They never force you to parry anything. It just makes things easier, but even then, it doesn't take that much more shots to defeat an enemy without parrying it. There was never a time in Metroid Dread when I was playing it where I've ever felt like I was forced to have to parry anything, even just to be convenient. Like, there were plenty of times where I was just like, I don't want to parry. I'll just shoot this thing. And then I would just shoot it, and it would be defeated, and that was that. For me, I never felt like there was ever any obligation to parry things. I just enjoyed doing it, but there were times where I just wouldn't, and it never like really became cumbersome or anything like that. There are a few boss fights in Metroid Dread that annoyed me though. Those Chozo robot boss fights are super annoying to me. Like even just like parrying them, they just take forever. I don't know what was up for me with those Chozo Guardian robots, especially the double ones. Those boss fights just took forever for me, and I really just disliked those particular boss fights. I had the hardest time with those Chozo robots. I just had to power through them as long as I could. But the boss fights in Metroid Dread are excellent, excellent all around. Just the sheer amount of challenge they provide, the sheer amount of options and ways you can take them down, the patterns to memorize, and the way they mix it up is excellent. But, actually, let me talk about... Okay, I mentioned parrying. Let me erase that. And instead, let me write down now... set pieces. That's the best way to put it. And I'm specifically going to talk about, like, the dark one. Oh, that was another thing I wanted to talk about. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I suspected Adam from the very start. Or rather, that Adam was not actually really Adam. It wasn't even until... Like, I was still, like, surprised by the whole Ravenbeak thing, but I wasn't surprised that Adam wasn't Adam the entire time. Like, I immediately got it. Because there are so many instances when Adam just has information that doesn't make any sense that he would be able to know. Like, he starts ascribing motivations to Ravenbeak despite the fact that we've only encountered him once and we've never met him. And it's like, Adam, that doesn't make any sense. How do you know what Ravenbeak wants, what he's trying to do? There's just so many instances where Adam is telling you information that it's like, Adam, how do you even know that? How do you know anything about this specific thing? How do you know anything about this person's motivations? He says so many odd things with certainty that we haven't even encountered yet. There's literally no way that Adam would be able to know so much of the... And then there's just ways that Adam speaks in a very sterile, militaristic way. I mean, like, to their credit, I don't know if it was just, it's poor writing, but it worked out because it's not Adam. Or they were being consistent. Like, Adam in Dread, saying things like, accept your helplessness, and stuff like that, that is not something that Adam says. There's, like, so many instances in Dread where Ravenbeak as Adam says things in overly metaphorical or what's the word, spiritualized or he talks in a way that is not how Adam speaks. Like, I was coming off of Fusion and it was throwing me off. Like, Adam's writing in Fusion is very consistent. He doesn't know what he doesn't know. And he realistically didn't know things that he didn't know. If he didn't have a way to sense something, get information on it, he wouldn't know the information. He wouldn't just suddenly have motivations that he knew nothing about. He didn't even know, like, what the X-Parasites really wanted or what they were doing. He would just offer hypotheticals and scenarios and ideas for explanations. But he was never... If he didn't really know something, he would say, I don't really know. I can't 100% ascertain. But then... Or... if he wanted to explain to you how dire a situation is, he would just tell you in a very sterile way, you know, probability of, he wouldn't like, I don't even know what the word is to describe this, but in Dread, he's like, accept your helplessness. You are going to die. Your survival, like that's not how Adam would speak. Adam would say like, the enemy has become extremely dangerous. If you encounter it, the likelihood of failure of engagement is very high. I recommend this approach should anything go wrong. That kind of thing. But in Dread, Adam suddenly starts speaking in way more, even beyond just him not saying lady. I feel like that's the most obvious thing. Him never saying lady, but also him speaking and all of a sudden in a lot more figurative, flowery language. Accept your helplessness. Like, it's super obvious all of a sudden how all of a sudden how down he's getting on Samus. That's not how Adam speaks. Again, computer Adam. We're not talking about other M Adam. But it's I still think it was funny. Like, there were so many years I would go to a Walmart and I would see other M's sitting at the bottom of the the glass for $5, for $5. For decades, I would just see cases of other M's sitting at the bottom for $5, and they were always there. But anyway, it was for me it was really clear how awkward it was, just how negative and like down and trying to make Samus feel helpless that Adam was speaking to her like constantly, over and over. And it's like, that's not how Adam speaks. He really neither encourages nor discourages. He just says things in a really analytical way and just kind of lets Samus come to a conclusion. Like, he'll offer hypotheticals and suggestions, but it'll neither really be neither positive nor negative. He would never say something like, accept your helplessness, and speak in these really, like, flowery, figurative ways. He would just tell you information and interpret it. So for me, and as I said, just the way he knew things. There were so many times where, I was thinking with more of like a writer hat and just thinking about consistency and just thinking like, Adam, there's no way you could know these things. How do you know that? We don't even know this character. And I was thinking to myself, is this just poor writing? And they're just putting words in Adam's mouth just to exposit to the audience, to the player. And then I would think like, that's kind of weird writing. There's literally no way that Adam would know these things. And then getting to the end, and then the whole like Ravenbeak speech at the end through Adam's voice, and then she shoots the hologram and it's revealed to be Ravenbeak. I was like, okay, that all makes sense now. This at least, like, it wasn't poor writing. Adam it was Ravenbeak, giving us information. There was no way Adam would know these things. There's no way Adam would know these things. So it was just Ravenbeak being really bad at pretending to be Adam. It was just that the entire time, which I thought was really funny. So it was just Ravenbeak. He's not the most interesting antagonist. Again, the idea of him, he's like a lot of other things in Metroid, where the idea of him is kind of compelling, but he really is the kind of like might makes right. There does seem to be kind of a through line between him and like Mother Brain. Like, I do wonder, because we see that the Malkin have built these brain central unit computers, so it is likely that they probably also had something to do with creating Mother Brain, and that probably had something to do with the way she, figured things. But he's not the most interesting antagonist. He's really tough and strong, and I do like how a lot of his equipment is exaggerated versions of Samus's suit. I mean, he literally, Samus is wearing a modified Chozo battle suit, so of course he's wearing a Chozo battle suit, but his suit has like a ridiculously large arm cannon. But just thinking about yeah, I noticed the inconsistencies with Adam, mainly just narratively before it just became like an actual part of the story, and then it was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, that I get it now. But another thing I would like to talk about, and this is the part of Dread that both bothers me and was cool for the first 3 times, the EMMI, the Emmy. Those Emmy rooms, they get a little too big for their own good. Getting to like Gavaron, the jungle area, and seeing how much space the Emmy rooms take up is just really sad and disappointing. And for me, the Emmy concept reaches its peak. It reaches its full evolution at the Yellow Emmy. The Yellow Emmy is where everything is put to the test. The normal Emmy thing should have just ended at the Yellow Emmy. But then the Emmys after that get less interesting and just become gimmicks. The whole like Ice Beam Emmy, where it never enters like red alert mode, but it's always on standby and will just freeze you, or the Emmy that just like shoots wave beams, those aren't interesting. They don't really become a challenge anymore. They're not really testing you. It just becomes avoid this thing as much as possible. Like with the Yellow Emmy, up to the yellow, that feels like the natural ending of the normal Emmy concept, where you finally reach the thing where there's a consequence if you stay in its sight for too long. You have to prioritize staying hidden. Its Emmy room isn't too big, but it feels justified for how like fast it is. So it has to be, enough to justify how quick it moves. And it feels like after that the Emmys either should have stopped or pivoted in a whole other direction. After the Yellow Emmy, here's my thoughts for the EMMI after the Yellow Emmy. The next Emmy should have been an Emmy that broke out of its containment room and started going through the main area. It should have been a small EMMI room, and then either it gets hacked or something happens that that its patrol zone gets expanded, or it loses the programming for its control zone. The X-Parasite controlled quiet robe, well, not controlled, X-Parasite quiet robe, changes its programming so that it leaves, you hear like an explosion, and the EMMI leaves its containment room. It leaves its zone, and you're just wandering through the area, and suddenly you hear the beep, boop, 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 boop. You suddenly hear it, and it's like, oh shoot, the EMMI is in the main area now. It's free. That should have been the next like evolution of the EMMI. It should have been that it broke out of its room and starts roaming around the area. And you know what else should have been? It should have been a dark area where you can't, where all you could see is like the red light of the EMMI's eye as it wanders around the room, and all you can do is hear it. And like see the lights, but like sometimes maybe its lights turn off, or so you would have been like spatially aware, and you would have had to like watch the environment for cues on where the EMMI is. That's what I think that EMMI, and then the purple EMMI. Here's the thought I had. Replace the last EMMI with X parasites that have gathered together to form biomass that then stick themselves and onto the EMMI and brute force move its body through just sheer accumulation of X parasites attack. It would have been the perfect way to create like a nightmare version, a nightmare EMMI, to really culminate the concept of how nightmarish and invincible the EMMI have been. And you know what it should have had? It should have been an EMMI that had the ability to grapple. So imagine this: the last EMMI is an EMMI who has tons of X parasites just smushed on top of it, and they like break its body into a whole new shape, but you still see its head like sticking out of the biomass, and if it and it's just like grotesquely moving around the area, and if it sees Samus, it shoots out a grapple that snatches onto her, and it starts dragging her towards it, and you have to use your beam to like get it off of you, either like shooting the thing it's used to grapple you with, or say you have the Omega cannon ability, and it's like, oh, that would be super creepy. Okay, say it's like glommed itself to the, and it's like grotesquely moving. It has all the DNA of, the X parasites. They have all the DNA of the different enemies, and they've attached to themselves to the EMMI, and it's like you can see all these limbs, and it's like grotesquely been broken into this shape, and it's like dragging itself towards you, and it suddenly starts moving just creepily fast when it sees you, and then it'll like shoot out something that'll grab you and start trying to drag you into its mass. I know there's like a dragging you into the mass to attack you. I know there's a, well, the thing is Samus, like, at that point she can't absorb. Oh, it would be replace the dumb power bomb EMMI with, again, get rid of the gimmick EMMI. Replace the powerbomb EMMI with this concept. Have it, oh. If I go to check this note, it's gonna stop the recording. Hold on. I'm gonna, 2 recordings, so be it. Hold on. I'm gonna go check. Looks like I made 2 recordings for nothing, but that's alright. I couldn't find it, so I'll just have to remember it. But replace the powerbomb EMMI with something like and introduce the power bomb earlier, through other means. I mean, Metroid Dread already introduces the power bomb so late. It's silly. But like, have a boss fight instead where Samus gets the power bomb and has to like blow up something from the inside. A little reference to the Queen Metroid, the Metroid Queen. Something like that. But have the last Emmy be this like nightmare Emmy, this nightmare EMMI, who tries to drag Samus into it to attack her, and this is where she uses the Omega beam cannon upgrade that you get, and she starts like shooting at it, but you know how you have to like hit it before it can approach you? Well, this time have it so that it's both dragging her and approaching her. It's too fast for her to be able to actually use the Omega cannon. So then in desperation, this is where she activates her Metroid, life energy siphoning ability. This is where you have her activate it. It like shoots its needle at her, and she does it, but she like catches it, but she starts siphoning out not only its energy but also the life out of all the X parasites that have attached itself to the to the Nightmare Emmy itself, and then have that be. That's what I would have done with those last Emmys. Have them like subvert expectation and be more narrative rather than the gimmicky ice beam Emmy and the wave beam Emmy. They're just so dumb. They're just a waste of time. The whole concept becomes tedious after the whole concept becomes tedious after the speed and the yellow Emmy. And I'm sure in the past I had an idea for that third one. That third Emmy. I would have to really think about and go back and think about what that was. What was it? It's the one that like breaks out of its room. It's that Nightmare Emmy. What did I have for the third EMMI? What was it? I guess it could be that stealth EMMI idea, or one that does like a flash shift. I don't remember exactly, but those two are definitely that's my idea. Because the EMMI as they are in the game, they're best at the third one, and then after that, I just get tired of seeing them. I just don't want to go through their rooms, not even out of like fear or dread anymore. They just become annoying. I don't. When I get taken, when getting caught by the blue one, the turquoise blue one, and the purple one, I just didn't care. It had passed at that point, and it was just annoyance whenever anything would happen with those ones. It just didn't care. Just put them away. Ugh. Design wise, physically, the EMMI for me. Here's the thing about Metroid Dread. Metroid Dread is like, it looks really good in some spots, and then it looks okay in others. Metroid Dread can kind of look overly plasticky sometimes. Some of the textures are just very general. They don't really capture the feeling of the material. And then other ones feel really, really good to look at. And some of the like spots look really good, and then other times Dread can feel just a little too toy-like sometimes. It kind of has the same thing that Prime 3 has, but I like the general direction of Dread a little more, but I feel like Prime 3 feels more weighty. Prime 3 is consistently realized all across the board, whereas Dread, some things just don't feel good to look at, while others are like really good. But I think Prime 3 just overall is more consistent with its art design, and it feels... Samus feels her size. Sometimes with Dread, even when you zoom in into the smaller... And I'm not talking about like the general gameplay, because, yeah, the general gameplay, it can feel diorama-like, and again, that would be reduced if the art design was more consistent and they went for those more realistic textures versus some of the kind of plasticky, toyish looking textures that Metroid Dread goes for a lot of the time. And I know there was like limitations, but the Switch, the regular Switch can run Metroid Prime 4 at 60 frames a second. I'm sure there was a way to get Dread to look more consistent and less toyish, and a bit closer to what Prime 4 looks like. I hope the next 2D Metroid looks closer to what Prime 4 looks like, in terms of like art direction and fidelity and the realization of its different assets. But like the EMMI are the most toy-like creatures. Their textures are a little like they're just kind of general, with a little bit of a sheen on it. I'm not a fan of quite a few areas of how Dread looks, but that's something that can be addressed later on, especially as they get more confident and they see and they see what others are capable of, and what they can do. Still, Dread runs very smoothly, and there are parts of it that do look really good. I just think it's interesting how I think there are parts of like the Dread suit that don't feel quite as good either, where like Samus has like these overly chunky hands in the suit, and like these like hand circles. There are a lot of aspects of the Dread suit which I like, but I don't like how chunky the hands are. Again, it makes her feel more action figure-y. And something about the Dread suit's presence feels more like a toy, whereas suits in like Metroid Dread, not Dread, in the Prime series, I mean, they're similar scales, similar anatomy, but just the way Dread's art style is realized and the suit is realized, it doesn't have a lot of body to it, physicality for me in its environment. It feels like I'm still looking at a diorama piece or a toy, even when it's like in a zoomed in cutscene. Whereas like Prime, even in Prime 4, the suits, Samus just has presence in the scene. She feels like, not even talking about when it's first person, when it's third person cutscenes in Prime 4, Samus feels very physical. There's a lot of body and weight to her presence in the scene. She feels as like tall and as big as she actually is. They feel like people in an environment, whereas in Dread, a lot of the parts still feel like toys on a set, or in a scene rather than in a setting or a world. There's something about the way Dread does things, where there's still like a layer of separation where I can't really feel the presence of the world that they're in very well. Whereas even when Prime would do 2D sections, like with the morph ball, it still felt very weighty. Like Samus was in a space, and you felt the weight of the ball, and it felt really like a big ball, that she's in, or it really felt like a body in an environment. There's something about the way Dread does things where that feels like it's missing. But let's see. Let me think. Moving on, there are a lot of instances in Dread where I wish it was 2.5D. There are, especially the jungle area. I just want Samus, the water, especially, video game water. Metroid Dread has some very nice water. Anyway, but especially Gavarin, there are just some parts where I wish I could just break out of the 2 dimensions and just go into the background and explore the planet as a planet. There's just parts of me where it's like, can we turn this part into a 3D Metroid where there's just like an actually dense forest? I just want to go into the background of these environments and actually do stuff in it. There, I talked about that. Let me get that off my list. Get off my list. There we go. Oh, yeah. Another thing I wanted to talk about with Metroid Dread is that its pacing can be a little odd sometimes. Nowhere nearly as bad as Prime 4's pacing, but there are some parts where it just feels like they went for something and it didn't. The game especially speeds up in the second half, where areas get shorter and shorter. It definitely feels like the game had bigger intentions and that they had to stop, that they didn't get to implement everything. It definitely feels like Dread just for me playing, Dread feels like it needs more. That it's not a finished game all the way. It's satisfying enough as it is, but I can definitely feel that there's a lot missing. And seeing like Dragon in the background in one of those tubes and it's just the shadow, I can feel how there was supposed to be a lot more in Dread. More boss fights, more cutscenes, more area, more narrative building up to Ravenbeak, and then a lot of it got cut down. And it doesn't even necessarily feel like good cut down. It feels like there are areas missing, and that there are moments missing, and pieces missing, and things not fully realized in Metroid Dread. Oh, that's another thing I want to mention later, is the progression in Metroid Dread. Metroid Dread's progression can just be... Oh, no, not talking about that right now, even though I wrote it. It just feels like there's supposed to be more in Dread that isn't there. And, let me think about this. Like, the main thing for me is, like, the set piece of when the lights go out in... Was it Berenia? I think? It's one of the later areas. That set piece where it goes dark, and there's a part where you see, like, something bashing into a wall in the background, and you see like it getting dented, but then suddenly it stops and it moves on. For me, the entire time while I was in that set piece of the lights going out, and you just have the lights on Samus's suit, I was just waiting for something to happen. The entire time, just waiting, like, ooh, a creature was bashing through. Is something following me? And I would keep looking through the backgrounds to see if something was, like, lurking, or if something was getting built up. And there is that cool part where you see the experiment on the ground, and it's like twitching, and the machines are kind of trying to shock it back into life. And that's interesting enough. That enough alone was just like, whoa! Like, what's that? But even then, I just spent the entire dark set piece waiting for something to happen. But nothing happens. Nothing happens during that dark set piece. It's literally just dark. And then you find the thing to turn on the power, and that's it. Like, and there are other set pieces, like the temperature dropping in that other area where you get the gravity suit and there's ice everywhere. I mean, there are other set pieces, but it's just that particular set piece, that darkness one. It's not just that, but there are other parts of Dread like that. Where it's like, it feels like something else was supposed to happen here. Is that it? Is that the extent of the idea of this whole thing? Is that where this ends? Is this darkness? It's never going to happen again, and it doesn't feel like they made the most out of it at all. And then it just goes away. It's like, oh, okay. Well, bye, I guess. But talking about Metroid Dread's progression, Metroid Dread is very sneaky. There was never a time where I got lost in Metroid Dread. Every time I thought I was breaking off the path in Metroid Dread, or being sneaky, or getting lost, it somehow turned out that I was in the exact path that the developers wanted me to be on, and then I would turn around and I got locked into the next spot. I wasn't a fan of that. But the thing is I can't really say it's a bad thing, or I can't really criticize it. Like, obviously, if you don't... Honestly, I say... that's the thing. I didn't like it, but I couldn't criticize it because it was really, really well done. And they always found a way to get you back to where you were. But it was always sneaky. Just like, I would think, like, okay, I'm going to go explore, and I'm going off the beaten path a little here. And then it was always like, nope, that's exactly where we expected you to go. Locked. Continue onward. And the first time that happened to me, I was like, is that supposed to happen? Do they want me to find another way to go back? And then I realized, like, no, I very quickly realized, no, this is it. And this is a This is a consistent thing. That, that they're gonna eventually lock you off for a second, have you go somewhere, and then return your liberty to go back. But they're gonna send you somewhere where you get more choices. But there's eventually going to be bottlenecks. Like that. That's the thing with Dread, is eventually there are going to be bottlenecks at certain points. Ooh, and I want to talk about how Adam in quotes is done versus the Aurora units. I'll put that on the list. But that's the thing with Dread. It's so well done, the way they kind of trick you into progressing, that, like, I can forgive the way they bottleneck you and get you off. I wouldn't, again, it's like Fusion. Fusion does it, executes. It's like, I'll take it at least once, that this is how you design a game, you know? Like Fusion, I wouldn't want every Metroid game. And Dread is like a mix of Fusion and Super Metroid with a bit of like Zero Mission thrown in there. It leans, even then with like Fusion's structure, even then it's a bit different, because Fusion would give you like a narrative through line and then basically just tell you figure out how to get there, whereas Dread is a little more structured in how it wants, and not how it wants you, but how it gets you to go places, but more free in what you do in those spaces, if that makes sense. It's a different balance of open and guidance in Dread. It's a very different. When you actually get to the areas, it's a bit more Super Metroid-ish, but in other parts, it's more guided than Fusion is, if that makes sense. The ratio and application of what's open and what's closed and what's guiding you versus what you get to do is a bit different. I wouldn't say it's more or less, it's just different. But they're sneaky with that. I'll take it once, for me. Like, I wouldn't want the next Metroid to do what Dread does with its progression, but as Dread does it, like, I'm satisfied with it. I can't even get upset. It's very well done. They always find a way to get you back really fast. And the way they connect it makes enough sense. Like, they do it well enough with the teleporters and the does Dread even have elevators? No, I think it just has, like, the trains, the teleporters. You know, they do it, they execute it well enough that I never really had a reason to complain. And it was usually at a point where I was like, yeah, I probably should be making progress anyway. I could never really get mad at it. It just made me grumpy. Like, it wasn't to my preference that would happen. But, you know, I'll take it. Fine, you know. I don't have to like it. But I would just move on, and then very soon they would send you to an interesting area, find you a new thing, and then, you know, it was forgivable. And then you'd find a way back, and then, you know, that was it. Something that I would also like to discuss with the Adam and the Aurora units is, it always annoyed me how the Aurora unit could really just chime in at any time. It was like having a phone on standby the entire time. But one thing I really liked with Adam, you know, in quotes, Adam. I'll just call him Adam, even though it's Ravenbeak. But I liked how they had the balance of, you enter the communication room, and then every space between that is just dead zone. Like, narratively and contextually, a dead zone. You literally cannot get in contact with, and even then, knowing that it was all a dead zone the entire time. Because that's the thing, I guess they're technically not dead zones. It's literally just that Ravenbeak set up that scenario and made it so that only those areas would be ones he would communicate with you in. But even before you know that, the fact that the narrative has set up, and as far as you know, without even knowing the whole thing with Ravenbeak, you go in thinking, okay, everything's a dead space. I can't contact Adam. So then you get to a comm room, and it's like, oh, Adam. And so instead of being weary that you're going to get contacted in the middle of doing something from the Aurora unit, or later Prime 4, but from the Aurora unit, you know that as long as you're not in a communication room, you're by yourself. That's it. It's radio silence. You cannot be contacted. Completely impossible. Dead zone. Ravenbeak set it up so that everything is jammed between communication rooms. So you get to a communication room and you feel relief. Like, friend. There you are. Give me the lowdown. What's going on here? And so you get to those comm rooms, and it feels more like a quick breather. Not a tone breaker, but just a quick breather. Not taking a pause from it's not what the desert does. It carries the tone through. You get a quick status update, and then you just move on to the next spot, and that's it. And if you need a quick pointer, you can just walk back in there, get the info again if you need it, and then move on. And even then, they get shut down later. So there's the contact terminals and the complete dead space in between. It keeps the tone alive. The fact that you can't be interrupted on your journey. And you never know when you're going to get to another communication zone within the area that you're in. It's I think that's a very good solution to having that sort of companion character, because you feel the effect of not having him and then getting to that space, and it's like, Adam, there you are. I'm glad. You have no idea what I've been through. And then you activate it, and you get the lowdown, and then you move on, and you're completely alone again. That for me is a very good balance of that. Much better than the Aurora units would do. Okay. I talked about the set piece with the darkness. Talking about the X-Parasites. I really like the turn that the game takes with the X-Parasites. Like, I am glad that we're finishing off the X-Parasites with this game. And I love how just upfront it is. You get to Elune, and Samus immediately starts blasting this horrid biomass creature, and then it turns into an X-Parasite. It's like, X-Parasites, there they are. And the way they're depicted in Dread, I really like that too. First off is the fact that from this point on, the whole first half of the game, you get your health points, you get missile drops, it's like normal. And then from that point on, one thing I think is just funny, no matter what planet you land on, everything just hates Samus. Every bit of wildlife. There's no docile wildlife. They all just want Samus dead. But there's not even the context of X-Parasites to make that happen. It's just one justification, but besides that, everything just hates her, no matter what planet she lands on. But Samus getting there and shooting down. First off, the build-up, the way those orbs scan her and then let her in, and then she starts shooting the creature, and then you see the X-Parasites, and the fact that from then on, the entire game shifts into Metroid Fusion's health and missile system, where Samus starts eating X-Parasites again. That really was compelling to me. That sudden shift, oh snap, we're in Fusion now. But the way the X-Parasites are depicted in Fusion, in Dread, the way that they go into a place, infect something, essentially wear its body like a biomass husk around itself, like a biomass puppet. And then eventually they'll just drop the biomass onto the ground or on the wall. They'll just secrete the biomass and the DNA of whatever they've taken up and just turn it into a hive. You're not just walking into a like goo or some ambiguous material, you are walking on Chozo. You are walking on Chozo carbon and DNA biomass molecules. They just infect all that, take it over, and then just wear it like a suit and manipulate it however they want. And when they're done, they just secrete the biomass onto the ground for other X-parasites to dip into, and then like pull the being out of the like reconstitute it however they want. And that imagery of when they get damaged enough, the creature that they've infected just converts into carbon and like black biomass, and then they like reform it. Like they absorb the DNA and they can just do whatever they want with it afterwards. And then they go and make a hive out of it. So you're literally walking on infected, absorbed creatures whose own bodies have just been turned into mass, just usable mass, just tools for X-parasites to just go into, reconstitute as best they can, and then that's it. And then you get to like when it's really infected and there's just biomass all over the walls, and they're forming it into like masses and constructs and nests, and there's more X-parasites forming. And the way that X-parasites are like these little gummies. and then the creatures that they just wear them. Something about that is very compelling. It's more horrific, and there's something really extra grotesque about the core X-parasites, the more advanced ones. When you defeat that cross bomb like beetle enemy, and the flying insect enemy that shoots the electricity, the way that Core X look in Metroid Dread is really just extra grotesque. And the way it just flies at you. There's something about it. They really tuned up as most as like Nintendo could. Just how grotesque. Like the only thing more than that is to depict them like Dead Space. This is what I was talking about before. Like remaking Fusion in 3D. And really pushing it more. Just the way the X-parasites are depicted now, and the way you get into that room with the soldier, and in the second half, you really get to see like this is just biomass being worn by a parasite. The way it just breaks the Chozo soldier's body into whatever form it needs. And then and then here's the thing I was talking about earlier. You have the opening of the game where Samus is just running. She's just rushing as fast as she possibly can to get to ZDR to address this whole Metroid situation. Not Metroid. This whole X-parasite situation. And you see how quickly she's just trying to get there. And then you get to the scene where she sees the door opened to Elune, where all the X-parasites have been trapped. And she just walks. She sees them all leaving out the hatch. And she doesn't even... There's no huffing, there's no puffing, there's no frustration. There's no running after them, there's no more... Just... She knows it's over. Just seeing her walking down the walk that leads into the building proper of Elune. And she's just looking. She's just watching. She doesn't even really turn her head much. She's just walking down the path, and X-parasites are, trying not to touch her, flying all around her, going out into ZDR, and, like, complete acceptance and resignation. Samus knows what has to happen now. She knows it's over. There's no point in rushing at this point. There's no point in getting upset. The planet's done for. And just think about the amount of time it took. Like, the moment that door is open, Minutes later, the entire planet is assimilated by X parasites. That's it. And you start getting that thing where they start infecting creatures and then mushing the creatures together to form, other creatures, or more advanced versions of creatures, or more aggressive versions. Purposely selecting, like, mutating them with more aggressive traits. Like, from that point, it's over. The whole planet's done. There is no saving ZDR. And just that scene of Samus's complete resignation. And you can already tell in her mind, just from the way she's reacting, that she knows it's over. The whole planet has to go. This is it. There's no saving this world anymore. It's done for. ZDR is done for. And something about that is really compelling. And something else I wanted to talk about is Quiet Robe at the end of the game. I really don't think that Quiet Robe is there anymore. I really don't think so. Honestly, I just think it's an X-Parasite doing what X-Parasites do. And I talked about this in, I think, the first part of me talking about Metroid, which is how the X-Parasites, there's a certain level of intelligence they can achieve, but there's a certain part where that just clashes with their instincts. Like how the SAX was not trying to help Samus. That's not why it was doing what it was doing. The SAX was, its programming was just to eliminate its threat, which was the Omega Metroid. It didn't sacrifice itself for the greater good, or with the purpose of empowering Samus. It gave her its ice beam so that she could kill the Omega Metroid. Even though the whole station was about to blow, and even though it was going to crash into the planet and destroy everything, despite the intelligence it gained, its instincts still just told it to go destroy the Omega Metroid. Not to stop the self-destruct sequence. Not to give up because it was pointless anyway. The station was going to get blown up with all of them on it and blow up the planet. Again, nothing that the SAX could do was going to stop all of the X-Parasites from getting killed on SR-388 or the space station. I mean, think about what it was doing. It was completely pointless. There was no reason for it to do what it was doing from from the big picture. Regardless of whether Samus made it out or not, the Omega Metroid was going to die from crashing into the planet. Think about this. The Omega Metroid was going to die anyway. The SAX was going to die anyway. All the X-Parasites were going to die anyway. Samus was going to die anyway. Think about it. If it had just left, the outcome was the same. All the X-Parasite did was actually enable Samus to survive, but had it simply done nothing, actually, had the SAX succeeded, it would have just killed the Omega Metroid, and it would have, I don't know if it would have turned on Samus afterwards, but it would have killed the Omega Metroid and it would have died anyway. The ship wasn't going to come for the SAX. So, again, think about that. Its instinct just made it go into survival mode and go fight the Omega Metroid. And I really do think that it's the same with Quiet Robe at the end of Metroid Dread. I know, it's Metroid, so it's vague enough you could interpret it in different ways, but for me, just based on past SAX behavior, it seems really likely that it copied Quiet Robes, and again, the whole thing with it, like repeating his last, it just seems to be like, last death twitches, repeating the last thing to someone said, because the X-Parasite that infects Ravenbeak also repeats his last words. But it's still just an X-Parasite. It just seems... And that's the thing, is with Dread, it seems to introduce this... But the thing is, we barely see any sentient thing. We never see anything sentient get infected with X-Parasites in Metroid Dread, except for Quiet Robe and Ravenbeak. And we see with both instances that their death words, or at least their most repeated phrases, get repeated as they're dying. It's like the last of their neurons, their behaviors getting processed out by the X-Parasites, or a last behavior getting, expressed, one last twitch, one last movement. It's kind of like those, the zombie movie where, he speculates, like, why are they coming to the mall? Well, it's because some part of them remembers coming here. There's like a little subconscious bit, but they're not them anymore. There's just like little instincts flaring up inside that draws them to a certain spot or causes them to behave a certain way for a second. But I do think with Quiet Robe that the X-Parasite did what it needed to do to calm Samus down, or at least throw her off for a second, by doing the bowing movement. And then very quickly, it turns itself back into an X-Parasite, tosses itself into her. But I think it's for the same reason that the SAX did it, which is that, again, Samus not only had become the biggest threat on the planet by the end of Dread, she was a Metroid. Not like literally a Metroid, but she had become an extremely dangerous mix of Metroid DNA. Again, it seems that Samus's suit kind of takes on the brunt of whatever modifications are made to her body. So like in Fusion, she gets infused with Metroid DNA, but physically she's still human. I mean, you can see that in the 100% ending. It seems like the suit helps to filter out and process and keep mutations off of her for the most part. At least the physical changes, and it kind of takes it into itself. That's just kind of how adaptable and biological her suit is, mixed with its mechanical parts. And I really like seeing in Dread how the suit kind of heals itself step by step. So in Fusion, it's like really raw, and when you get to Dread, you can see the muscles and armor. I'm really interested to see in Metroid 6 what her suit looks like, if it'll heal more completely and more of it'll be covered up. In Dread, you get to see like the muscle, the biomechanical muscle of her suit reforming. It's healing, and it's interesting how her suit kind of takes the brunt of her mutations. But by the end of Dread, her suit is like fully expressing Metroid DNA mutation to the nth degree, that like even more than the Omega Metroid was. She's literally siphoning the life of anything she touches. She has a permanent hyper beam. She's more of a threat than the Omega Metroid was at the end of Fusion, and that set off the SAX's instincts to go take care of it. I mean, it even stopped chasing Samus just to go attack the Sector Zero where the Metroids were being bred. So it clearly takes the X-Parasites clearly have a hierarchy of what they will address. And Metroids immediately seem to just jump to the top of that list. No matter how intelligent they become, no matter what happens, no matter what they absorb, Metroids are just the top of that. So it seems to me that at the end of Metroid Dread, the Quiet Robe X identify, like, first off is the fact that Quiet Robe knew what was happening to Samus's body. clearly had knowledge of what was going on there. So the Quiet Robe X would know. Well, first off, the Quiet Robe X knows where her ship is. Second off, it has Ravenbeak's knowledge. Not Ravenbeak. It has Quiet Robe's knowledge now, especially of DNA and like mechanics and things like that. It has the knowledge of the what's going on with Samus's body, biological enhancement, mutation, engineering. It knows what's going on now. So it now recognize, and on top of that, Samus's DNA is fully expressing all the DNA, all the Metroid mutations, and her suit is like fully taking it on. I'm guessing that like all the instinctual alarm bells are just going off in the X Parasite, specifically like Quiet Robe's X Parasite. And so it knows, and so like instinctually it's going to pacify the Metroid threat. I wouldn't even say before it can go out into space. Because think about it. It's the same thing with... It's kind of the same thing as with the SAX. Had it just left well enough alone, death. Samus would just die. But it actually helped her to eliminate the Omega Metroid. And so Samus survived. The Quiet Robe X does the same thing. It senses a Metroid threat. You know, it throws Samus off, kind of pacifies her by doing the movement, and then immediately pacifies the Metroid threat. And so Samus survives. It's not much different from how the SAX helped Samus to survive incidentally, just through its inability to control its own survival instinct and impulses to destroy the Omega Metroid. I imagine it's not any different with Quiet Robe X. Its instinct just made it go pacify this like massive roaming Metroid threat. And so, and incidentally, it helps Samus to... It donates the last of the Toha genes to help rebalance Samus's DNA. And incidentally, it helps to... help her escape. You know, she's not going to siphon all the energy out of the ship anymore. But, here's the thing for me. I'm thinking about Dread. Like, if you're gonna criticize something, really think about it. You know, if you go in to complain about the baseline of what Metroid Prime's shooting is and how it like guides your shots and you know, the way just Metroid Prime in general shooting is, it's like you're not having an argument. This is just what Metroid Prime... It's like complaining about Mario jumping on enemies and how simple. It's like, stop wasting your time. Just get out. It's like, why are you even here? There's literally nothing to discuss here. It's just the way it is. Now, when it's below baseline interesting, like what Prime 4 does, then yes, there is a reason to complain about that. Like, Prime 4 does even less with its shooting than what Prime does. In fact, it goes... At least with Prime 1, Prime 2, Prime 3, it looked for fun ways to work with how its shooting is. Or augment it with the rest of the world. But there's just a baseline of what Metroid Prime's shooting is, where it's like... Don't complain. This isn't even an argument. Why are you even here? You know? It's like... picking a fight with nothing. This is just how it is, you know? But, again, really think about the baseline of Metroid endings. Prime 4's ending really is more robust than 90% of Metroid endings. You can complain. I figure you can complain about Prime 4's ending in relation to Prime 4's writing, and in relation to its story, in relation to what it does. But in terms of complaining about how abrupt it is, or how sudden it is, or how the game just stops, like, that's just how Metroid endings are. Look at Dread's ending. Samus, like, gets in her ship, flies away, planet explodes, game over. Not game over, but game end. Credits. Metroid Prime's ending. You don't even get the escape sequence. Samus just leaves the impact crater, gets on her ship, sees the thing explode, and that's it. Leaves. Really, for me, the best Metroid ending probably really is, like, Echoes. Because Echoes is so full, as just, like, the game that it is, there's not much to say afterwards. Whereas Dread, there's quite a bit to say afterwards. And same with Super Metroid. And Prime 1. Like, most Metroid games end in really abrupt, unsatisfying, like, what? Over? Okay, I guess that's it. But you enjoy the game, you enjoy what it offered, but, like, in terms of what it actually does, Prime 4 has an unusually extended ending for a Metroid game. Not talking about its narrative faults, just I've seen people complain about how quick it is, or how it just, like, that really is. There are reasons why it's at fault for an unsatisfying story or things like that, but there's really, I don't think there's much justification to complain for it being a short, abrupt ending, or for being unsatisfying, or just cutting off the story all of a sudden. Because Dread's ending does the same. That's just Metroid endings in general, for the most part. But, anyway, I better move on to the next thing. I'm thinking to myself right now about, music? I don't mind. Dread's music. It's okay. It's okay. I don't think it's terrible. I just think it's kind of generic. It serves the goal of what it's doing, but there's nothing really to write home about. It's one of those things where if you try to over defend it and say, like, well, this is the way it has to be, or actually, I don't think those other things would have. It's perfectly atmospheric and does its job, so I don't have to think about the other stuff, so I can focus on it, or whatever it is. It's like that thing where it's like, had they done more concise, themes and things like that, would you have asked them to take it out of the game? I don't think you would have. I don't think it would have ruined the experience. It is fair just to say, like, in a general sense, these aren't very recognizable. They're not, I'm not going to go thinking about them later. They do their job. They're not the best it could be. They're not the only way they could have expressed the tone. Had they done more with it, had they done more distinct compositions, unless it's like what Prime 3 does, I think Prime 3 is the only thing where I would be like, tone it down a little bit, or like change the direction, or Prime 2, kind of tweak this a little, rethink it. I can't even say that with Dread. They're different enough that I can't put the same complaints I had with Echoes soundtrack, and they're not like garish enough that I have the same complaints that I had with Prime 3's soundtrack. They're just like so middle of the road, where it's like, I kind of wish you tried something. The only thing I can really complain about is that they're kind of uninspired and uninteresting, but that's its problem. versus like Echoes. The parts of that soundtrack I don't like, they sure do have a lot of character. Just character, if that makes sense. Which I think it does. I think that makes sense. Anyway, I'm thinking there are plenty of people you can find who can point out all the problems with Prime 4. How it's like overly linear, how its level design is really dumb, how there's just long hallways everywhere, how everything, it gives a false sense of scale, how I'm actually a little tired. Do I really want to make 5 parts talking about Metroid? Let me think. How long is what I have so far? I know I said I wanted to end this at the 4th part, but there's so much I want to talk about, and I've been going on for almost 2 hours now. So I'm gonna stop, and I'm gonna upload this. Gonna bite the bullet. There are so many topics I want to talk about, but I want to finish Metroid first, and I'm low on energy for today. So I'm gonna stop here and get this together, upload it, get my thoughts in order for tomorrow, where I'm going to finish off. I'm going to talk about Prime 4 and just general feelings about Metroid. So, that's it for today.